We're going to like to start our last session of the morning, and people will trickle in from the outside, but let's get going. Title of this session is Perspectives and Collaborations, and this is, I think, an important session. We're going to have perspectives of a number of different individuals, and this is relating to agencies and groups that we either do or would like to have closer relationships, and we're going to try and get some perspectives on these. So my first speaker this morning is Donna Love, who's Mycology Program Officer at NIAID. So she's going to give the NIH perspective. Donna, thank you so much for being here.
Okay, thanks, Pete. And thanks to the organizers for carving out some time for me to speak to you all. It's a real delight to be back here and in person and seeing familiar friends and also meeting new people. So today I want to give the Nyad update for you guys. And as Pete said, I'm the program officer for what we call basic mycology, but we really have a whole team that supports medical mycology at Nyad. And today my talk is a little different. Usually I give a NIH 101 tips and tricks. I have that talk with me for those of you that are interested in that. See me later, and I'm happy to go over that with you. Or we can set up a Zoom meeting, and I can help folks navigate the grant process. Okay, so the outline for my talk, I'm going to do a little bit breakout of the mycology portfolio. I'm going to talk about recently funded awards and activity within the portfolio, and then go over funding announcements and also support for clinical and translational research. And so just shown here is our building. So if you guys are ever in the DC area, please stop by. I love meeting with investigators. It's really the best part of my job. Okay, so here is the just a quick overview, a snapshot of the medical mycology portfolio supported by Nyad. We have over 240 active projects, over $100 million in funding for basic clinical and translational research. And the map of the US is just showing the distribution of those grants across the United States. I only have two, maybe three international grants in my portfolio. Those are all in Canada. I would really be interested in expanding this map around the world. So we do take international applications. I just want to let you guys know, I know the grant process is really hard. It can be demoralizing, but this portfolio is growing. It's grown quite a bit since I became the program officer. It's been 6 years now. So, and that's due to you guys submitting applications. It's hard for us to fund you if you don't submit. So kudos to you guys for growing the portfolio. So this is just a breakout of the portfolio in terms of the research area and then the pathogen. So you can see that really the base of this portfolio is basic research. And so I like to think of that as the foundation that then translates into therapeutics, diagnostics, and vaccines. And you can see here a breakout of the pathogens that we cover. Candida and crypto make up the lion's share of this portfolio, followed by aspergillus, and then the dimorphs, and pneumocystis is sort of hanging out there a little bit. So I do want to say at Nyad, we're what we call a Paline-driven institute. So what that means is when you submit an application to Nyad, it's reviewed by a study section, by peer review, and it's given a score. And if that score makes Paline, we fund it. So as a program officer, I don't have a lot of control over balancing the portfolio. So as you can see, crypto and Candida make up the lion's share, and I think maybe aspergillus in terms of morbidity and mortality is also quite important. But that sort of slice of the pie in the portfolio is rather small. So it's an area that I'm keen to expand. Additionally, the dimorphs are also a little bit underrepresented. And so one of the few ways that we have to sort of grow different areas of the portfolio is to come out with these specific funding announcements. And so shown here is a few of the PAs that I've developed over the last few years to try to expand certain areas. So this was targeted to valley fever and the endemics. And so I'll say when I first became a program officer, I think I had, I don't know, there was maybe 1 or 2 R01s on valley fever. So that's not a very robust portfolio. So we put out these PAs, and you all responded rather robustly. And so from the PA, we had 14 grants awarded, R01s and R21s, which I think is terrific. We also expanded the fungal diagnostics area. We had a PA on that. We awarded 6 grants. And then, as Twee mentioned, we also had an SBIR contract topic focused on point-of-care diagnostics, and we were able to make 4 contract awards, and then 2 of those have gone on to the phase 2. So this is just an example of how we can expand certain areas in research. And so I'm always, I'm open. I'm here if you guys have an idea, an underserved area. I'm all ears, and so see me afterwards. We do have opportunities as program officers to develop these ideas into funding announcements. It's sort of a difficult and fraught road, but I'm always willing to try. One of the sort of major funding announcements that we've put out on a specific topic is, of course, the COXI centers. These are large U19s that we developed. A U19 is a multi-project grant that's centered around a core. And the objective of this is really to promote highly collaborative, multi-site, translational, and clinical research to improve the diagnosis, treatment, and prevention of valley fever. And so this came out a couple of years ago. We just made the awards this year. They are, I'm happy to say, 4 awards totaling $6 million in direct costs per year. You can see the centers are listed here. We have 2 in California, 1 in Texas, and 1 in northern Arizona. So I'm really pleased with these centers. They've already started producing some really exciting data, and so we invite you all to the COXI study group to hear more about the research that will be coming out of these centers. Okay, and another important area, again, on valley fever, as you all know, are the observational study to try to assess the incidence of primary pulmonary valley fever among community-acquired patients, et cetera. So I just put this up there. I know there are people in the audience that are involved in this clinical study. It's ongoing, and I think it is on track to meet its recruitment goals. Okay, so now I just want to spend a little bit of time about the funding opportunities for clinical research, considering this is the mycosis study group. And we've heard a lot about clinical trials and ways to support that, so I've geared the rest of my talk towards that. In terms of career development awards for clinicians, specifically for clinicians, Nyad does appreciate our physician scientists. I think Nyad is keen to expand physician scientists in research for infectious diseases. And so we have a variety of these awards. I know that most of them are only available to folks that are either citizens or hold green cards. I've heard you. I will report back to leadership again, but I do want to put these out here. And also my talk, I have all of these hot links, so hopefully my talk will be available to you and you can go to the websites that I have linked here. But just quickly go over, the K08 is really for a clinical scientist that's doing sort of bench work. Then we have a K23 for mentored patient-oriented research. I saw some folks that gave talks that I think that this, the K23 would be appropriate. I also want to make folks aware of the K24, which is a mid-career investigator award to mentor young physicians in clinical research. So again, for folks in their mid-career, I think that this is a really nice award to provide some protected time to mentor young physicians. And then for my international colleagues, we do have a K99 R00 physician scientist pathway to independence that is available to you. And I'd be happy to talk more about any of these awards after my talk here or later. Just please email me. And so I wanted to spend a little bit of time about clinical trials and what kinds of supports we have at Nyad for clinical trials. We do have this landing page, and if you're considering clinical trials, I implore you to go here. We do have a variety of hot links, etc. there. All you need to know to get started is found on this webpage. And we do actually have a lot of support for investigator-initiated clinical trials. And so, but as you might imagine, there's a lot of, I know there's a lot of planning on your side that goes into it, and there's a lot of planning on our side. So we have a whole SOP for that. The link is here. We have general questions and facts. And so just to get yourselves ready to begin interacting with Nyad, the information is here. And so you really need to ask yourself which investigator-initiated clinical trial FOA best suits your research. We have a variety of those, and I'll show those on the next slide. And then at least 10 weeks before your submission due date, or more, 10 weeks is really minimum, please contact me or whoever the program officer is that would be appropriate for your research, so we can begin talking about your application and sort of helping you get through the process. Because we have to get approval on our side. For most clinical trials, you do need a letter from our division director, Emily Erbelding, that was here earlier, and so there's a lot of meetings that go in ahead of time, but it is possible. I will say that all grant applications, it doesn't matter whether it's clinical trial or not, if it's over $500,000 direct costs, you need prior consultation. So if you can produce a clinical trial that's less than $500K, you don't actually need prior consultation, but I highly, highly suggest it. I mean, the more we know, the more we can help you. So please contact us early before you're thinking about applying. So the types of Iict awards that we have a regular R01, and this is really for something that we consider not a high-risk clinical trial where you're not introducing a new, drug or something like that. I think this was just sort of what we used to call clinical research, but when we changed the definition of clinical trial, we scooped up a lot of research and put it into that bucket. So we do have a regular R01, and we have a regular R21 that a clinical trial is appropriate. And so make sure if you have, know the definition of clinical trial so that you're using the right FOA. So I do want to point out, we have an extended R01 that is a project period of 6 or 7 years. This is a really nice mechanism, I think, for folks because it allows you to sort of spread your investigation over a longer period, longer than the standard 5 years. It also allows you to spread your budget over that many years. This R01 also, we convene a special study review panel for it, and so I think that the reviews are really top-notch, and it's quite a nice mechanism. And then, of course, we have the U01 clinical trial, and this, whenever an NIH FOA has a U, it means that there is extra programmatic involvement, and that's folks like myself. So a U01 would be something that we would consider high risk, that we might put into that bucket, and also the budget could be quite large. I will say if it's over $1 million direct costs, it really escalates the approval, and not only does Emily have to approve it, but it has to go up sort of to the Dr. Fauci level. So if you can come in under $1 million direct costs, that's always sort of the best route. And then we also have for our small businesses, we have an SBIR that allows for clinical trials. So there is a variety of investigator-initiated mechanisms that are suitable for clinical trials. So I do want to sort of impress on this group. I know that the system has changed, but we do have mechanisms to support clinical trials. And then lastly, we do have if you're thinking about a clinical trial, we have a clinical trial planning grant. It's only for a year, and it just allows you to write your protocol. That's available for you guys. I think there are some folks here that have gotten this award. It depends where you are, I think. If you've already written your protocol, if you're experts in protocol writing, I think maybe this can just perhaps set you back a year. I would recommend just going for one of the other mechanisms that I mentioned on the previous slide. And so now I want to turn your attention to some of the additional supports that we have sort of within Nyad to help you sort of transition your product along this pipeline. We have preclinical support, we have clinical support, and the links are there. Sometimes it's once you go there, it's a little confusing, so I'm going to break it out a bit in the next few slides. We do have a network of clinical trial research consortiums, so I do want to make folks aware of them. The IDCRC is shown here at the top. I think some folks, these are awards to some of the institutions that you all belong to. There's expert working groups. You submit your idea to these working groups. They evaluate it, discuss it, and then we'll get back to you, hopefully. And, but I will say that the decision whether or not to do the trial is within this consortium, so it's a little bit out of our hands. So again, there's, I think, a little bit of a risk. And they have been very busy, of course, with COVID. I know not everybody, we do mycology, but some of the folks here might do antimicrobial resistance, so I want to make you aware of the antibacterial resistance leadership group that also runs clinical trials for certain bacterial infections. And then we do have also phase 0 to phase 2 support for folks that have a therapeutic, a vaccine, a diagnostic. And so I think these are actually very nice for folks. We can do early testing for you, and I think these are a little bit more nimble, if we can ever say nimble when it comes to Nyad. But we have utilized these and used them to support some therapeutics that have been mentioned at this meeting. And then finally, I want to just end with this whole suite of preclinical services that we have for researchers if you're developing a therapeutic, a diagnostic, or a vaccine. We can do synthesis, manufacturing. We can do GMP manufacturing. We'll do efficacy studies, MIC, animal models, non-clinical studies. These are all free, perfectly free. There's a form that you have to fill out. It's evaluated in-house at Nyad, and then we begin a discussion. So, you know, I love to see applications come in for these services for medical mycology. So again, the emails are down there. We have Aaron and Erica are our preclinical managers. They're great to work with, and I think that this is can really help people push their product along the development pipeline. And the eligibility criteria, this is open to anybody, academia, not-for-profit, industry, government, international, domestic. So, you know, all you have to do is just ask and start the conversation, and these resources are available for you. There is a non-clinical evaluation agreement. Nyad just serves as the pass-through here. We have contractors that do the work. All of the data belongs to you. We just help connect you with our contractors and provide this service to you. And then we also have some additional support that I just want to make folks aware of. BEI, as many know, this is where our repository for clinical strains and isolates. If you have trouble interacting with BEI, please contact me and I can help facilitate. We also do crystal structures for folks. If you have a protein that you are curious, what is the structure? We can do that for free. We have a wealth of resources for folks interested in the human immunology. We have an adjuvant compendium and a whole suite of contractors that are working on adjuvant development for vaccines. And, you know, the immune epitope database and analysis. So again, I think we do have a whole suite of resources for researchers that are outside the scope of grants that I think can be very helpful for for the community. So I want to make you aware, and these are all hot linked in my in this talk. And so I just want to end by saying thanks for your attention. And it's just not me that's the program officer, but you have a whole team supporting you. And these are the folks that I work with. You can see in the center there with the blue tie, that's Dennis Dixon. I think he was the original mycology program officer at Nyad. And he is our leader now. But Bao Ying Liu is the program officer for therapeutics. You have somebody for vaccines, and you have someone for diagnostics. So again, there's a whole team at Nyad to support you. And so all you need to do is just contact us. It's our job to help you guys sort of navigate this process. So thanks very much for your attention.